Welcome agents. Microsoft is beginning to allow keyboard and mouse support with newer Xbox titles. So my question today and topic is keyboard and mouse compatibility for The Division 2. Is this a good or bad idea? Now I think it's worth talking about today as it may well be coming at launch. So if you enjoy this one, please drop a like and let's try and hit 200 likes again. That will be absolutely awesome. Of course, get involved and leave your comments below and let's do this. As I like to do with most videos where I want your agent's opinion before making the video, I put out a poll 2 days ago to see what side of the fence the majority of you agents stood on, and I was actually really surprised, to be honest. So on screen you will see the poll results, and as you can see, the majority of you agents would support the idea of the Division 2 having keyboard and mouse compatibility, which I think surprised me more than anything because I personally don't want this unless there are some very specific matchmaking rules in place, but we will get into that. First off, what I want to do is pick out some of the comments you agents left, because I did ask why you would say yes or say no or be on the fence, so let's do that first. The first comment I've picked comes from Anders Pedersen, who said yes to the question, and they said, yes, yes, yes. Been a keyboard and mouse warrior since I was a kid. As most of the Division is PvE, it's no biggie. Give the option for matchmaking in PvP content to be or not to be matchmaked with others on keyboard and mouse, and then you're free to play with whomever you like. Would love it if they went full Monty and did cross-platform, cross-progress, but that's just a dream, I guess. Now, I would 100% have to agree on the cross-platform. I think something that Division 1 really missed out on, and if that's something they were considering for the Division 2, I would have to say yes. Now, I did choose this comment first because almost everyone who left a comment whose answer was yes to the question gave a similar reason as Anders, which is that keyboard and mouse should be supported on the Division 2, but for PvP, where almost everyone who says no has a problem, just like me, they have specific matchmaking so controller players do not play against keyboard and mouse players in PvP. And we're going to come back to that at a later stage. Moving on, and the next comment is from Rogue Games, who said, if you use keyboard and mouse on console, you've got a huge advantage. And why not just play on PC if you're going to use keyboard and mouse? Oh wait, I know. It's easy to dominate most players using a controller. Now this comment pretty much sums up why keyboard and mouse on console would not be a good idea for the Division 2. And again, the majority of comments where people have said no have a similar reason. Some more examples like Dave DeBomb or Dav DeBomb 21 just said, unfair advantage, and Pirate Villain Gaming said, you should have run on PS4 bro. Cronus and keyboard and mouse multi-groups all day, every day. It sucks that people have to go to these lengths just to win and won't be humble with a loss to a better player with a controller. It takes the fun out of the game. Before we go over these comments and I give you mine, the last comment I want to show is a maybe comment from Jerry Smith, which says, only if you could opt out of playing with them. Things such as headshots are a lot easier on PC, so using mouse and keyboard on console would be easier to beam. However, at the same time, it would offer variety in competition and more players to join in PvE. Okay, so now we've looked at all the arguments from you agents and who have said yes, no or maybe. I want to go over these and give you my opinion, so let's start. So at the start of the video, I said I was surprised by the poll because my immediate response to this question is no. And I still stick by that, but I will be honest, if the devs did do it properly, so controller players were not at a disadvantage, I wouldn't be totally against keyboard and mouse. With that said though, I can see both sides of the argument. So first off, there are a couple of reasons why I said no straight away. The first one is the unfair advantage within PvP. Now I've never played the Division on PC or with a keyboard and mouse, but from what everyone says, it's much easier to aim with keyboard and mouse, which kind of makes sense, of course. So it creates a really unfair advantage for any controller player should they play against someone who is playing with keyboard and mouse on console. If there's one sure way to kill PvP within the Division 2 is to create an environment where some players have an advantage over others just by using a keyboard and mouse. So surely they shouldn't be doing that. Now I can't think of anything worse for the Division, and that has to be the main reason. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, than having an unfair advantage in the game. Of course, one way to avoid this would be to create a matchmaking option that allowed you to choose whether you wanted to be matched against keyboard and mouse players or not. And that way, you'd only play against controller players if you wanted to. The one big problem with this is it would create a significant stretch in the PvP player base. You'd have some people wanting to play against keyboard and mouse players for a real tough competition. Maybe they've got their sweatband on, maybe they've had their G-Full and they're just ready for some really, really tough PvP play. Or you'd have others who just want to play with a controller against people on the same playing field. Now this cuts the player base in half, which could see a significant increase in the time it takes to actually matchmake for games within PvP. And if this is anything like The Division, it could spell disaster for PvP, so this would have to be considered, of course. I guess this could work out, but I just don't see the point really. And this goes on to my second point. What is the point? Why should The Division 2 allow keyboard and mouse compatibility on Xbox when you could just purchase the game on PC and play on there, where keyboard and mouse should be used? The only argument I can think of to this point is that some people cannot afford a PC that will run the game, but if that's the case, just use a controller on a console. Now, I've tried to think about this one, but I always come back to this question. The way I see it is very, very simple. If you want to play on console, you play using a controller. And if you want to play on PC, you can either use a controller or a keyboard and mouse. And it's fine like that, due to my first point. Have any of you agents ever played any third-person shooter on a PC with a controller before, against any sort of keyboard and mouse players? Now, I've played Fortnite, use a controller, against PC players, and it's semi-impossible unless you really sweat. Unless you're a god and you're sweating for hours of a day, you've not got much chance, and you're at a massive disadvantage. And I've played numerous third-person shooters with a controller, and it's simply you're just so far behind. Unless you really want to pull in the hours, it's just not going to happen. And that's not hours people are going to be willing to spend in PvP in The Division 2 if they're getting beamed right off the start. So I'd like to hear from you agents that disagree with me on this one with your counter argument, because I've tried to think of one and I just can't think of a counter argument at this point. The only positive, in my opinion, with keyboard and mouse compatibility within The Division 2 would be for PvE purposes. And that would be absolutely fine unless, of course, the raids are so good that we have like world's first runs, and then it could create an unfair advantage should one team use keyboard and mouse and the other one use a controller. Anytime the keyboard and mouse has an advantage, it's not good in any game, not just The Division 2. It's simply much easier to be on keyboard and mouse compared to a controller, so even for PvE, there will be times when it still provides an advantage over others. And that's just not good, so there isn't really even a PvE argument at this point either. All in all, I just don't see the point in allowing keyboard and mouse compatibility for The Division 2 when it has created a very bad environment over on PS4 in The Division, and it will absolutely destroy PvP within The Division 2. Even if you had a matchmaking system which had separated keyboard and mouse and controller, as I stated before. I just can't understand how you would support this when it clearly gives those with a keyboard and mouse a huge advantage over those who use a controller. It's like FIFA for me. My brother, I've got a story for you guys. My brother will happily play on Novice, on FIFA, winning 12-0 a game with no competition, where I always like to challenge myself and get better, so I always make sure that once I start winning, 5 or 6 games and I'm winning comfortably, that I up the difficulty. I like to have competition, whereas my brother just doesn't. I never understood how my brother can just enjoy that experience, and this would apply to keyboard and mouse within The Division 2. How can you enjoy having such a big advantage over other people? You get no achievement, no sense of achievement for winning a gunfight when you're against a controller player. If you're a controller player who said yes, but only with matchmaking preferences that separated them both, I get that, especially if you wanted to match against keyboard and mouse players for a much harder experience. I know from my personal opinion that if that became an option, then I would almost certainly play against PC players if I wanted something a bit sweaty and if I really wanted to test my skill against PC players. And that may be a good thing, but I ultimately don't think it's a good thing based on all the points that I've raised in this video. Now, I know that Division 2 won't be a competitive PvP shooter, but any game that gives some players an advantage and not others will never succeed in the end. Take Cronus Max for example. This has killed PvP in The Division because it gives players a massive advantage over others. And this is just not something I think would be a good idea. But I would love for you agents to leave your comments below and let me know what you think. As I said at the start, it would appear the majority of you would be fine with keyboard and mouse compatibility for the Division 2, so I'm kind of expecting a lot of pushback down below. With that said though, I do hope you enjoyed this video today. I have been trying to cover almost every subject I can for the Division 2, but I'm sure there are a lot more. So again, if you have any ideas for future videos, please leave them below as well, and I will try and get round to them. As always, your support agents has been amazing, and I cannot thank you enough. It really encourages me to work harder and longer to bring the best videos to you. So thank you very much. And until the next one, Epic out.